Good evening, good afternoon, and good morning, depending on where in the known world you are. Welcome to The Crown Between Two Roses, which we may need to change the name of in the future.
Nah.
But I am Countess Lilia, and
I'm Countess Beatrice, and thank you for joining us tonight. Firstly, I would like to do the acknowledgement of country. Good nobles, we come here together in the spirit of fellowship, deepening of our skills, sharing of knowledge, and a shared interest in this search to find truth through experimental archaeology and historical inquiry. It is in this context that I, Countess Beatrice Maria Malatesta, on behalf of my kingdom, acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands upon which we gather. We recognise their continuing connection to land and culture, and we pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging, and elders from other communities who may be here today. So tonight we are redoing the interview because last time we actually did this interview, technology completely failed us in a major way. We thought that the interview had been recorded. However, it must have been a Magnus thing with not having his tech savvy in the background. So we are back tonight. We've got it live. And tonight we have Magnus, who is the man behind the idea of The Crown Between Two Roses. Thank you for joining us, Magnus.
Good evening. I'm Magnus.
So firstly, we're going to ask you a little bit about your origin and how you started in the SCA.
No, I started in the SCA a little bit over 20 years ago, originally in the Shire of Borders Cross. I was there with work and was away camping and hiking on a weekend. Was heavily involved in the Scouts at the time, and one of the Rovers partners was involved in the SCA. During the hike, we discussed bits and pieces that we'd done during high school and the likes. I was heavily involved in Dungeons and Dragons, and we had the Kendo Shinai, and we used to do sword fighting with those. She goes, well, I do this thing called the SCA. You might want to come along. Rocked up to one event. They've gone, well, we've got some of Duke Eric from Ontier's clone armor. You can put some of that on and you can hit people with sticks. They had a couple of battle axes, some swords, and I've been playing ever since.
Awesome. So you mentioned you started in Borders Cross. I met you in, I think we're in St. Florian. So how many groups have you actually lived in?
Borders Cross, St. Florian's, Riverhaven, and Stormhold. So 4, but I've done the shuffle up and down the eastern seaboard. So we've done 3 stints in Brisbane, 2 in Albury, and have only just recently started playing back in Melbourne, where I grew up and spent the first 20 odd years of my life.
so we better explain, what do you do for a mundane job, Magnus?
I'm employed by the Army, so that involves me getting generally moved around every 3 to 5 years. And this is the longest place I've lived in the last 18 years. I've been here for 6 years now. It's great.
So did you find it hard to set roots in a group, knowing that you were going to be moved on when the army or the military has asked you to do so?
No, because I spent roughly 6 months of the year not living in the houses I was renting at the time because of field and other training commitments, that whenever I was at the SCA or somewhere where I was, I'd get heavily involved and go the camping, the fighting, and all of the bits that I could do while I was there. So I made the most of what I had while I could, and then I was away the rest of the time. So I had a couple of years dealing with that with Scouts prior to getting heavily involved in the SCA, and that just carried over.
So do you have a persona?
Originally, when I first rocked up to Borders Cross, I've gone, okay, we can find some names and what type of things do you do? It's like, well, I did the Dungeons and Dragons and I like the Dwarven type characters. And they've gone, oh, that's kind of Norse Viking inspired. So here's some names, and it's like Magnus. Like, oh yeah, that's cool. Like, I'll go with that. So it was an early period style name. It's clothes that are simple. They're most of my garb is munitions grade, apart from some very lovely clothing that I have with monkeys. And that it's something that allows me to do all the infrastructure and camping and chopping wood and setting stuff on fire that I like doing.
So how many names do you have in the SCA?
3 common ones. So there's Magnus Thorbjornsson, which is my registered name. I have Blame Monkey, which I acquired from one of my first households, where the Blame Monkey was the newest member of the household because anything that happened was generally their fault. Because of my ability to generally rectify the problem that I had been blamed for, regardless whether it was my fault or not, they've gone, well, if we keep blaming you for stuff, you're going to keep fixing it. So Blame Monkey kind of stuck. And then due to my ungraceful but flexible movement on the fighting field, Queen Hulla at the time gave me the name of Ninja Elephant because of my fighting down at an Innisfall Baronial changeover. So all of those are in canon lore because of Gabrielle Hamilton has placed them in there.
So this fighting down in Innisfall, is that because you can lay flat on your back, basically when you're on your knees?
Yes.
Crazy. It's quite disturbing to watch it, really.
So what is your favorite event we're going to jump around with the questions because you know them. So we're going to try and whittle out some information from you. So what is one of your favorite events in the SCA?
One of my favorite events is the Battle of Butney Cross. So it was the first Butney Cross that was held up in St. Florian, was the first event, actual proper event that I went to many, many years ago, about 22 years ago now. Something like that. Then it's progressed, but it's generally a 4 or 5 person team melee, and you end up joining into teams of 8 to 10, and then you fight through, and then there's a winner at the end. You get a very lovely pewter token, which was up until very recently held in very high renown because a lot of people had it, but a few people didn't. It's like, haha, I've got one. One of my greatest memories on the field was at one of the Butney Crosses where the 2 teams had been weeded down to, so it was 8 on the field each side to start with, and then I ended up getting pinned in the corner, and one of them being the last person from my team still alive. One of the others, Orlando the Pure, has gone, Magnus, would you like to yield? I've paused, I've stopped, looked from left to right. There was your husband, Bran, was on the field there, very formidable. And it's like, scary. There was Gogo, there was Nemain.
My student.
And so there was 7 of them. And I've gone, okay. And Orlando's gone, it sounded like, it kind of appeared that you were counting to see how many of us you were. It's like, well, if there would have been 6, you would have said yes. If there had been an 8, you would have said yes. It's like, no, I've gone, nope, let's have at it. And I've dived forwards. I've taken 2 of them down with me on the way out, and then they've crawled me. I was only assessing to go, well, how many people can I take out with me on the way out?
And die looking pretty.
Oh, no, I was horrible.
Crawled all the way, hey?
Yeah. Was in a lovely loaner gear Frankenhelm from St. Florian at the time. Not quite a Freon can construction, but a very ugly welded and painted with rusty chainmail mesh and beautiful.
I've just realized that we're all the same generation of SEA. It's just like that. The pennies just dropped that we've all been playing roughly for the same amount of time, which is good. Yeah.
Feels like ages.
You were one of the people I remember from my first trip through St. Florian. So I started and played for about 10 months in Borders Cross and then got posted to St. Florian, spent about 10 months training there, and then moved up to Townsville, which led to a 7-year absence. And when I got back to St. Florian, Lil, you were one of the happy faces I remembered from my first time through.
Loud people in the corner, you mean drinking?
Yep, yourself and Akasha was also one of the loud voices and that short Glazeman when he eventually came back.
Fair enough. So, your turn, B. Ask a question. Let's try and get some dirt off on Magnus.
So, Magnus, we know that you are a master of the Pelican in your own right, but you're also a squire. Tell us about how you became a squire and the relationship with your knight.
It's an interesting one. So when I'd come back to Brisbane from Townsville, I'd been back at fighter practice for about 4 months, and then Bain came back to fighter practice and go, "Hey, I remember you. You were back here." So I'd fought as part of the Vompar war band on my first trip through St. Florians. And he said, "Oh, you're back. You haven't." It's like, "Hey, you're still here." So we got to. By this time, he had been knighted, and we got along well. Before I left again, he asked if I would be his squire. So I enjoyed the household. We all got along, and that's kind of how I became in pretty much the rule of don't be a dick, keep in touch, have fun, and it's kind of how it started and carried on.
So, how many households are you a member of, and how do they vary in structure?
So most of them are informal in structure. There's Vompar is the overall household. I'm squire to Bain. I was protege to Lochac. Lochac has a household that has kind of grown off from there as well. There are a few households that I am fringe to that not formally part of but accepted by. And there's the Howling Monkeys, which are people that make stuff happen and work, but it's what we do. So really there's about 5 or 6.
So now that you're a peer yourself, would you start your own household, or are you committed to being one of the many peers in Vompar?
That Vompar is a state of mind. We have many households within the household. We accept those on the warfield and off the warfield to come and play that enrich our game, and on the flip side that we have Vompar South down in Adelaide being the house of Von Danzig. They graciously allowed me to join their ranks when we went to Border War last year? No, the year before, because it didn't run this year. So it's that common type of bond that we all enjoy and have fun.
Nice. So I'm going to ask you, you've been in the SCA for quite a while. What is one of your favourite things to do?
I like the camping and the infrastructure side of things. So putting up tents, keeping tents up, building and burning the campfires.
So you're a logistics pelican.
I like doing things that means that I don't have to redo it again later.
What would be one of your most challenging points of going to an event? So one of your most challenging things to go to an event? Or one of your most prominent memories of an event where things did fall down?
That we've had festivals where there have been fires, floods, and lots of things that have gone down. We've had a couple of festivals actually that have been very wet, which have either resulted in people wanting to leave early, but then restrict access of cars to get on and off site and having to rectify those issues. Windy camping events where the main tent blew down in the middle of a gathering of pelicans, and then there was a whole heap of flapping of arms to, oh, we need to. In the process of all the flapping, the tent got rectified, and they've gone, oh, how'd that happen? And that was a lovely spring war.
I love your description of stuff.
The flapping pelicans. Yep.
Flapping the pelican.
So that was a fun spring war.
So I'm going to ask a question that we've not asked anyone else before. Who is the one person that you were elated got recognized and elevated?
B.
B. Yay!
So that, as a lot of people will think when they are asked, is that I'm not worthy. Why me? If this person hasn't, why am I getting asked first? And there were 3 or 4 people, all of which have now been elevated, that were very much on that list, and had a discussion with both my knight and my pelican at the time, and they've gone that, well, from outside the council you have no influence, from inside at least you can speak their cause. So
Yeah.
For those people who are outside, though, what would you suggest they do?
recommend. Document. So if you send emails down, there is a document chain that gets put onto the list, and then that gets recorded and people can see that evidence. If people don't travel and aren't known around the kingdom, then they generally get forgotten, or we don't know that person well enough. It's often to detriment of the candidate that if they don't travel, or if the members on the council don't
Or
travel.
they travel too much.
Or
they travel too much.
Yep. So there's a lot of the time the council goes, oh, I don't know of this person. You go, well, how often have you gone outside of your little bubble? Oh, we don't. Well, that person's never come here. It's like, well, it's a 4,000 kilometer trip to get to where you are from where they are. They do a lot in their 400 kilometer bubble, 500 kilometer bubble. And to get to an event, they have to do a 400K round trip to do it. And they do that week in, week out, and commitment. But just because you haven't seen them doesn't mean that they're not contributing.
So basically telling the councils what people are doing to build that renown for them.
Yep. Personally, I think that's one aspect of it, but I also think that if you're doing the job, just continuing to do the job will eventually get you noticed. It's just having the renown that backs it kind of accelerates it a little bit more, because I mean, we all know people who we as lapping pelicans, let's just put it that way, that we kind of, we recognize their body of work and that they're working and that they're making a difference to the society, but it's the impact of this difference to the society that we're also need to hear about. And that's, I think, what you're talking about with renown. Like, as long as other people hear about it and are going, oh, he's the person to go to, or she's the person who'll fix that, then we get to hear about it, but we don't hear it without the recommendations. So,
and building on that, you know, it's taken, I know it's kind of taken a long time to get renown built. I do stuff. We all do stuff. It's how we work.
What were you pelled for, B?
Me?
Yeah.
Keeping Lochac in line, I think.
That's only because I abandoned him.
Running events, being a go-to person, running kitchens, I'm terrible at offices, even though I am Kingdom Seneschal. I have an amazing network of people. That's my go-to.
And
So
yourself,
you're a
Will?
people pal.
Kind of, yeah. But I'm really bad at that first introduction to newcomers. Don't ever ask me to talk to newcomers. That's definitely an open line for me.
So you have the
I'm not good.
opposite of your fear.
Pardon?
You have the
No.
opposite of your fear. You have newbie fear.
Yes, yes.
What about you, Magnus? How do you introduce yourself to a newbie?
Generally with a sword and a crash hat going, hey, look at this stuff. That we'll often see those on the side of the field when we're having events and go, oh, they're kind of looking what they're doing. Well, I've just got off the field, I've fallen over, have been poleaxed by a red-headed baron and do a cartwheel out under the list rope and go, hey! And then people are going, oh, hey, this is what we're doing. That's what we've got. You go over there. There's stuff here. And
So your enthusiasm is what draws people in. Is that what you're saying?
I identify people that may be interested in the parts of the society that interest me and then engage with them. And if they're looking at other stuff, you go, I've got this stuff, but those people have got pretty dresses. You may like that. Or this person over there makes beer. You look like you might like beer. Go speak to that person. So being able to identify who I can best engage with and then who I can send other people to.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you a question that I asked you in the last interview that we did that did not air. What is your proudest moment in the SCA so far?
When I got my court barony. So in the early years, spent a lot of it actively within St. Florian's. We had Northern War was our largest event. There were 3 or 4 people that were kind of my idols at the time, and they all ended up with court baronies because of the way they played the game and what they did for the group at the time. When you've got people wanted to be knights, pearls, laurels, that the court barony was just like that one. And I got it at that exceedingly windy spring war. Aside from helping keep the main tent up, there were 3 or 4 other main infrastructure tents, so I've gone around and relushed those to make sure they wouldn't fall down. There were 3 or 4 tents, personal tents that had blown down, and one of the personal tents that I'd blown down was one that I was actually staying in the front of. So I get called up for court and by the B&B of
Wardenvale?
That's the word, Mortonvale. I'll have to give the cup back. And got given the cup of friendship for the work I'd done for the infrastructure to stop everything
I've never
dying.
gotten that.
Me either.
That's what happens.
And I'm one of their daughters, perpetual guard of the barony, and I still don't have that cup. So, bully for you.
Yeah, but I haven't had a bath in their coleslaw tubs, so.
Oh. That's a different story, but let's move on.
So as I was about to get up and leave court, I get told, no, shuffle here. So I got summoned in front of Beatrice and Henri. And then we'd like to pronounce you a baron within our court. At a very low, like, get fucked. I was rocked back on my heels, shocked and awed. And Henri's gone, oh no, what have we done? He's gone into a little bit of a panic. B's chuckling. The 2 guardsmen behind that have heard it started chuckling, and then the rest of it's gone through and up and bounce. And
yeah, so when you were asking earlier, Lil, about alternative names that Magnus has, Baron Get Fucked is that other name that he is known by. Baron Blame Monkey, Baron Get Fucked, because of that moment. And I have to say, Henri and I actually had a vigorous debate over who was going to give that court barony to Magnus, because we both wanted to do it, and he won out on that one because there were a couple of others that were given during that event.
Who was your consolation prize?
There was a consolation prize? Oh,
Uh,
Macca.
No,
Yeah,
we're not
Andreas.
interviewing
Never.
me.
No. Macca is never a consolation prize. I totally did. He deserved that.
Yeah.
I made him a coronet and everything for it.
And it was great to be able to share that day with Macca as well.
Yeah. So one of those good stories that you see in the SCA.
So I'm going to bring it back to fighting. How many reigns have you been a guard on?
Why do you ask this, Lil?
About 6.
6. I'm
About
asking
6.
this because obviously he's somebody who's trustworthy, and yet he hoodwinked you and I into doing this. So I'm pointing out.
But he was not on either of
Either
our
of your
guards
guards.
either.
Were you not? Wait,
No.
no, you weren't, because you
weren't.
were on deployment.
I was away. I wasn't that away.
You went that away. Pretty sure that's why, because I did bring you up, and Bruce went, we can't expect him to turn up to these
Yeah.
events if his priority
here.
is mundane commitments. And I went, but it's Magnus. But you have to not ask him because mundane life comes first. And I've always believed that. So
Yeah, whereas Magnus was a large part of Margie and Sheridan's reign. So, but he was always there for me. He was my guard always.
Stunt Gus on 1 or 2 occasions.
Stunt Gus, stunt Queen's champion. Oh no, it wasn't. It was stunt Queen. Stunt guard. I'm gonna drink some more now. You can ask Lil.
So, so what keeps you in the SCA? Apart from Beatrice, what keeps you in the SCA?
That I enjoy camping. It's something that I get out and I can give back. There are a lot of people that have given a lot to me through my time within the society, and to be able to give that back and help it continue to go forwards. I like hitting people with sticks, especially Benedict. So it's haven't been able to now for just over 6 months, and we're looking at a stage where we might be able to get back face to face and play a little bit more.
So you've just mentioned Benedict. Give me another 3 fighters that you always get into kit for to fight.
It's Benedict. At the moment, Sir Sebastian.
Fair. Head of
yes.
household and all.
Left-handed, wickedly fast, hits you with things that you've got no idea how he could possibly have got them there, even though you do know that he's a left-handed person. Unlike Cormac, that was doubly surprised because he'd forgotten that he was left-handed. The new person would be the third. Someone that is keen and eager to be in armor and wants someone to hit. That it doesn't need to be a duke or someone of renown. It's someone who is willing to be in armor and needs someone to be there so that they can hit or to be hit back is a person that I would be wanting to fight.
So following on from that, who would be your top 3 people from across the known world who you would want to engage with, in the list? Well, yeah, I had to clarify that,
Happily married, 2 kids.
I'd like to spend some time with Rivkin because the Murder of Dukes interviews and all the content she's put forwards, and the Sport of Kings that is happening, I think, mid-August next year over in the States, is something that she is instrumental behind. And very much again that before going to Penzic a couple of years ago, I'd spent a lot of time trawling the internet, seeing the fighting videos that clicked and worked and stuff that related well. And my head has just gone blank. I'm horrible with names. It was Duke Dietrich's was the some of the video that I'd seen. And during some pickups after some of the battles, I found some people to fight and was training there. It was Her Highness. Nope, I'll pick it in a minute. Anyway, so I'd already picked a fight and was about to fight down here, and B and Lochac had found this lovely tall gentleman in lovely studded type armor and a beautiful helm, and Lochac was fangirling over this bloke's armor, and he's looked over and gone, 2 people from Lochac, I'll go over and I'll pick a fight with them. Do you want to fight? They've gone, well, we're not in any of our stuff, but we know someone who does. So they've dragged him down to where I was, and I'm about to start a pickup, and it's like, I know you. I want to fight you. And he's like, oh, do you want to fight? It's like, I've got some fights here. Do you mind if I? He's like, yep, no worries. Finish off. I'll be up there for as long as you want. Do what you need to hear, and then come up and fight. And we had about half an hour to an hour of training on the side of the field, and Dietrich's was awesome to engage with there. And I'd love to probably fight with him again as well. And I'd like to see my friends enjoy some of the fighting from some of the coaches from the coaches' corner. So you've got Duke Sean, you've got Sagan, you've got Branos, that those people, the amount that they're putting in and the amount that they keep putting in for everybody. So
this leads me to the question, why did you hoodwink us into doing this? Because you've just mentioned a whole lot of things that you watched online. And obviously, watching online videos is an important part of what you've actually incorporated into your training mentally, as well as like the techniques, watching other people's techniques. But why did you decide it was being me who needed to do this?
So I'd been watching, it had gotten to a point where we'd been put into lockdown where we were allowed to leave home once a day for shopping, medical purposes, and that was about it. We were allowed to travel 5Ks from our house, and we weren't allowed to do pretty much anything. I was continuing my physical training by running on the treadmill, and I needed something to keep my head engaged. We had Count Roland at the time was doing weekly fighting videos from basics, bits and pieces. Sareva had put in some other videos as well. Then I started watching more content that was available at the time. So there was Attilius with his 5-method interviews. So he had Duke Neil, Duke Stefan, Duke Felix, and a whole heap of others, and started watching those, which then once I started to run out of things to watch, I got onto the stuff that Vespa was coordinating with the Coach's Corner with those the people I mentioned before, and Rivkin's Murder of Dukes, and then just kept running out of stuff. So there was the sisters interviews with Rivkin and Asakchi that had been doing the people that had influenced on tier. And I've gone, well, this is something that we can probably do. There was also Logan's interviews with the Ask a Knight and Tulia and Helga with the Between Two Peers. And I've got to thinking that, well, how can we share Lochac with the greater known world and get as many people involved as possible? And we don't see many interviews with current reigning unless they're dukes and they end up on some of the other stuff, or they're from the West. So gone, well, having a chat to B, knowing that as Seneschal, she has the availability of this platform to then put it out to everywhere else. And by chance, she happened to be at your house at the time. I think you may have had 1 or 2 cups between you at that stage, and you've gone, yeah, that's a great idea. And by the time we'd finished, there's this, so,
I asked if there was another rose that you wanted to ask.
It's like, yeah, lovely.
Then I conned you. We know that.
Because I'm the naive one. Just so that everybody out there knows, I am the naive one.
You can keep saying it to yourself, but we know the truth, Lil.
Right. So
I have
What-
to say, sorry, Lil, but I
You
have
go.
to say, I absolutely am honored by the fact that you approached me and that we are both doing this. And for those who are watching, we're actually continuing this series, and we do have some of the coronets of the principalities lined up to interview, as well as our barons and baronesses across the great kingdom of Lochac. And we are now in discussion with who else can we con into coming on and having a chat with us. So be prepared, people. It's going out there.
And
We
other
have
hosts.
some names.
So we have a couple of names that we're coming up with for hosts as well.
Yes. Yeah.
So, because I'm pretty sure you're all sick of seeing my face. So we're
No.
gonna tag in, tag out. Right. So, Magnus, the silliest thing that you have done at an event.
So, for the baronial changeover, when Humble and Uta stood down as B&B of Stormhold,
Yeah.
there were some people that organised to have a privateers as part of the thing, because before Hamble stepped up as Baron, he was a ship's captain. So for the
You mean he was a pirate?
well, you kind of got to loot successfully to be a pirate, so maybe not.
Yeah, true. True. Yeah.
Oh,
That's
wow.
booty. It has to be booty. Let's be honest.
So I was wrangled in to be part of the ship's crew, and for the first 3/4 of the evening, I wore a monkey onesie with the arms out, tied around my waist, with the tail wrapped around my leg. I may have hugged someone, and the tail that was down my inner thigh has then touched up, and then they've gone, "Is that what I think?" It's like, no, it's a tail. Look at this. And I've gone, no, I don't want to see that. Countess Margie. Then for the court, when they've stood down, I've taken my shirt off, taken the pants off that have been over the top of the monkey suit, put some short Vombar shorts over the monkey suit and a small tabard, and have then come into court, because every pirate crew needs a monkey.
Or a parrot, yeah.
I think there might have been a parrot as well, but there was definitely a small stuffed parrot.
Did you sit on anyone's shoulder?
I tried. They were a little bit cranky.
Oh, man. Talking about monkeys.
We have gotten up to some monkey shenanigans in those onesies.
Oh, yes. Yes, we have. On another note, your pelican ceremony
Yes.
was a little bit unique, but one of the things with the monkeys is actually a project that Lilia and I took on board, which was to create a coat for you. And tonight you are definitely wearing that coat. So, Lil, you could explain this one.
So you can obviously tell anybody watching this video that both myself and Beatrice hold Magnus in very high esteem. And the Blame Monkey name was very prominent in our group, because if something went wrong, you could go, hey, monkey, and Magnus would turn up and fix it, right? So we decided that he was going to get some new garb for his step up as a peer, because inevitably all his garb would have soot or grease or something.
Munitions grade, I think, is what you called it.
So Beatrice informed me that she was going to make him this beautiful red wool coat, and she said to me, do you have any suggestions on, we'd like to do a barrel of monkeys as the braid? And I went, what? And she went, a barrel of monkeys, because he's a monkey. And I went, okay, So I did one of those lovely things where the Laurel Council asked for my laurel back, and I found a competitive Norse pattern I managed to meld the monkeys into. So Magnus's lovely coat has monkeys, the barrel of monkeys in a Norse braid down the front and on the cuffs, but the cuffs have actually got all of the things that we recognize him for. So one of them holds a sword, one of them holds a anchor, one of them holds a flame. So they're all things that on the cuffs that are solely how we recognize that if Magnus has had a couple of drinks, we need to keep an eye on him. There's a hammer in there because I've seen you making too many endings. So there's all of these things on his coat. But for me, I regret not being there to watch Magnus being elevated. The only reason why I couldn't make it because Bran was in the middle of chemo and radiation therapy, and I couldn't get custody time at the time, and I didn't want to leave my very sick husband alone with our child. But it is one of my big regrets is not seeing Magnus and the flaming sword. Hey.
Well, that flaming sword has its own story, really. Hey, Magnus.
So during Stefan and Bronwyn's reign, they did not deliver any buffets, but they provided an alternative in such. So one of the knights, Clem, when he was knighted, he bore the weight of responsibility, which involved a lot of people being stacks on top of him. For mine, they got the sword and they've held it out during part of it. And Stefan, during his rhetoric, has gone up and gone, if you are worthy, this sword will light. And he's plunged the sword into the fire pit. It was all recorded. There is someone off to the side going, no, not the sword of state. So into the fire pit, it's come out and nothing happened. What they'd done beforehand is they doused the sword because he's an actor by trade, and he doused the sword in some flame paste, and the intent was the flame paste was going to burn. But because they'd had me swear on the sword beforehand, and I put my hands on it, and it's like, oh, this sword's dirty. I've taken the hat out of my thing, turned it inside out, and I've cleaned the sword off with the inside of my hat. So they've gone, oh, you'll be worthy. And it's like, there's no flame. So you're still worthy.
Good squire. You've done the right thing and cleaned the sword.
You were a good guardsman and did the right thing unknowingly, and it was a bit of a good piece of theatrics that His Majesty adapted to very quickly.
Highly amusing.
So I would like to know your story between you and Beatrice, like that you have between you and Beatrice, like a memory that you have.
Oh.
Apart from the journey.
I don't know if that's a safe place to be. Because mostly I'm drunk, he's sober, or we're both drunk and he's looking after me.
Oh, so they at the baronial changeover and royal visit down at Innisfore, they had a race tourney. So they had the nice big feast because it was a baronial changeover. So we spent the 2 or 3 days. I'd come down for a holiday. We spent the 2 or 3 days leading up to it doing a lot of kitchen prep, cooking stuff, making pies, and pretty much work till 2 o'clock in the morning, the days leading up to it and getting everything done. The day before, it's like, oh, we've got a rose tourney tomorrow. We've got to get some roses. So it's like, okay, we'll go and any roses that are hanging over the footpath, over the fences onto the footpath, they're in public space, they're fair game. So we went around and started getting roses from the gardens of Hobart at about midnight. So no one saw us. And then it got to a point of, well, we don't have that many. It's like, that one smells nice. It's on the inside. It's leaning over. It's okay. And it's like, we still don't have that many roses to fill the bag. So I started going, this is a pretty flower. It's not a rose. All right, it's in the bag. Like, this is a pretty flower.
It's a pansy.
There's a hydrangea. These are awesome. That can go in there.
You can't take that. They're geraniums.
It's in the bag. So we got several roses that may not have been roses.
Yeah. So this was our 10 o'clock at night walk around South Hobart collecting roses for the tourney.
And then we went back and dethorned the roses so the next day, after coming forwards, I've been slain gloriously on the field and just kind of come up for a rose, and they've gone, oh, here's one and it reminds you of you. And it was one of the ones that we hadn't taken the thorns off.
Halla was queen at the time and looked at our collection of roses and kind of just looked at me and went, it's Magnus's fault. He's to blame.
Then during the tourney, we started to run a little bit low, and the closest water point was about 150 meters from where the shade tent in the tourney was, which happened to be in the middle of a rose garden. So I've come back down. It's like, oh, yep, here's another dozen. It's like, where'd you get them from? Don't ask questions. It'll be fine.
I do apologize. I very rarely do it for Magnus, but I did apologize for that one.
Fair.
Yeah, I was helping.
Helping. Helping. Oh my goodness. If Magnus, so this is for everyone out there, if Magnus ever says that he's helping, don't. Just don't trust that, because Magnus helping is not really helping.
Not your flowers.
I love you.
Oh, we can play out. Your time to ask a question, B.
I don't know if I can.
Go.
So we've spoken about Lochac a little bit tonight. Can you explain your weird relationship with him?
So he was Baron MacGyver. He was the type of person that
Gave him that name.
So what did that just do?
Oh, we better explain that before you go on. I'll give you some time to think about it. I don't know if this is a tradition that we got from the West or whether it's something that's really from Lochac. But when you receive a court baronetcy, you're given a unofficial title in Lochac when you get one. So Baron MacGyver was given to Lochac when I was queen, because we ended up with more landed royalty turning up to an event, and I went, we're about 4 thrones short, and he went, that's fine, I'll do it. And he just seemed to knock them up using a paperclip and some chewing gum paper, but they were perfect. And you, so that's why he's known as Baron MacGyver. So Magnus, you found out why Magnus got his alternative title that goes with the Baron, the court barony. So that's why we're calling him Baron MacGyver, and Baron.
Go away.
Get fucked.
Baron Blame Monkey, Baron Get Fucked. He has 2.
Yeah. So explain your relationship. Look.
So the first real interaction with Lochac was at one of the Northern Wars, and I'd rocked up early and helped to do the setups for the tents and bits and pieces, and was putting up tents because I've been doing it for 20 years by that time, and was fine. And he's come and then started telling me that what I was doing was not quite to his standard. I was like, I'm doing this perfectly fine. And he's going, okay, no worries. I can be the fool that you're treating me as, and I can excel at that fool more than you can think of. And then he's got to a point going, wait a sec, you're now just screwing with me and you know exactly what you're doing. It's like, yeah, if you want me to do it, you can, and I'll do it. Or if you're going to stand there and stand over my shoulder, I'm going to make this as difficult for you as humanly possible. He's gone, and he's walked off. And then for the rest of the weekend, it's been pretty much can you help me with this? Can we do that? And it kind of past that initial point, it's like, And I really enjoy the way that he just gets stuff done. And when I found out that he was, well, before he was elevated, I said, well, if you ever get elevated, or if you get done before me, I'd like to be your protege. So, sure, whatever, I'm not going to become a pelican. Then when he was asked, like, I'm going to be your protege. He goes, yeah, sure, no worries. So then they're going, oh, what are you doing? Well, I'm the kudos protege. So everything I do continues to make you look good because that's what I've been doing for the duration anyway. So we may as well share this relationship as we can keep going forwards. So it was.
Do you have a protege?
Yes.
Do you want to drop a name?
It is Michaela.
Ah, very cool.
Yeah. So we went to Rowaney. I drove her up there a couple of years ago, spent a couple of hours in the car, discussing bits and pieces backwards and forwards. And then she asked, well, can I be your protege? So, well, no, let's focus on doing things because you're having fun and have fun doing them. And that's the, oh, but what is everything I do is because it's either A, I enjoy it, or B, it will save me less work later.
So I have a question. Do you think that you can train somebody to have service, or is it just a mentorship in the order of the pelican?
It depends.
This one you have.
Depends on how you want to play the game. There are tick boxes and checks that you can learn skills and meet requirements and get to an endpoint, or there's different people's perspective of how and why they play the game. I do not see that service is something that deserves reward. Service is something that you do willingly, freely, and without expectations of reward. So if you do it expecting to get something out of it, then you're not necessarily doing it for the right reason. And that my guidance is that do stuff that is fun, do stuff that you enjoy, do stuff for those reasons. Don't do it for the focus on getting something out of it at the end.
I think that's one of the big things that Magnus and I have very much bonded over, that and this was something with Lochac as my knight, going, if you're not having fun doing it, then why are you doing it? I enjoy service. I enjoy doing things. I run events because I love to see the joy on people's faces. I do things for that reason, and I think that's why we've definitely been a very strong team over the last 8 years at least, really. Yeah. And he's married with 2 kids, and his wife is awesome, just say.
Yeah, Penny's pretty cool.
And she
like
she lets us steal him to do this stuff while looking after the boys.
So another story. When I was asked to be a pelican, that they told Penny, oh, you've got to come to this event because Magnus is going to be asked to be a pelican.
Subtlety is not one of our strong suits, is it?
But because Penny didn't actively rock up to a lot of events, so they've gone, well, we want you to be there. This is why you need to come along to this. They've told me, Penny's getting her AOA at that event. You've got to make sure that she's this and that she's all there. So we had some of the household that were there. It was a Butney Cross. We had some people there for the Butney Cross, maybe, or Rowaney, Riverhaven.
Something. It was a Riverhaven event.
Riverhaven, yes. Yeah. Dimitri's elevation to pelican. Yeah. So there was the fighting during the day. Then there was going to be about a 2 to 3 hour break in the middle, and then feast at night. Most of my households weren't going to be at the feast at night, but they hadn't done the asking at the first part. So where Penny and I are doing whirling dervish and ripping down tents and bits and pieces, and they've called the court, a quick impromptu court. Like Penny and I are still there pulling out tent pegs. They've gone, oh, Magnus and Odney, come forward to the thing. Penny's gone, get fucked. What do I have to go up there for? I'm doing stuff. So it wasn't me for a change. It's like,
She's a
come on, let's go.
pelican in the making. Love her.
So we went up, and then they've given her an AOA, and she's all, oh, what's this for? And then, yep, no worries, we get to go. And then they've gone, oh, I respect you greatly, Neil. And then they've offered me elevation to the pelican.
That was fun. I have to say, I got to stand behind court. I was told beforehand that both of them were happening, hence why there are photos of these things.
I don't think I've seen them. And then due to work, the next 4 times I tried to line up an event or something to happen for the elevation to occur. It ended up going through 3 different lots of royals before I was actually elevated.
Ow.
Yeah. Well, I have one last question for you, Magnus, because we are so almost out of time. What's the deal with your background?
It's Zog. He rocks. He was the biggest dragon
The biggest dragon in what?
in his class. So in year 1, they
I have
learned
no idea.
to fly. In year 2, they learnt to roar. In year 3, they learnt to breathe fire. In year 4, they had to capture a princess. And he did. He captured Princess Pearl. She was lovely. In year 5, they learnt to fight. And then Sir Gadabout the knight came. And Zog and Gadabout were to fight. And Pearl's gone, don't be silly fools. There are way too many burns and bumps, you silly chumps. You will not fight for me. And then Gadabout's gone. Princess Pearl said she wants to be a doctor instead of a princess. Gadabout's gone, hey, that sounds like a great idea. I don't want to do this knight stuff anymore. How about we do it together? Princess Pearl says, your horse is too small. Zog goes, I'll be your ambulance. The teacher said, that's a great idea. And the flying doctors, they flew off and they zigzagged through the blue.
Yay.
It is a lovely book.
My last question is your favorite story to tell around a campfire.
Well, see, I was avoiding this because we've told so many stories. I just didn't want to.
You're a no shit, there I was. And then we will end the interview.
Gotta find another one. So my first Rowanee festival, there was told before we go out. So I'd been asked to fight with Vombar and on the red and yellow, and had gone forward. And they're going, before you go and do something heroic or potentially foolish, Scout, cheeky monkeys, and you go forwards. There was the fort battle. There was the murder pocket. And they've gone, we need people to charge
Murder
that
pocket?
and to kill pocket.
What's a murder pocket?
It's the space inside the entrance of a fort, which has generally got walls down either side, and then you get into and you pretty much die.
Yeah,
We
murder
need
pocket.
someone to breach the fort so that everything else can backfill in. Go, give this a go. And it's like, crazy, go. And they've wound the candle and set 4 or 5 of us in. And what took about that long, and fight. And then there was a hold called. No worries. Dead clear. Out of and 8 of us that had ended up getting in the pocket, 2 of us were left standing. We hadn't done any damage to the rest of it. And we look, and there's pikes everywhere. This is going to end horribly. Leon was called. About 5 pikes later, on the ground, dead, because it was all just... Another one. At a Cold War, there was a scenario where there was... it was a timed battle. 2 teams, 1 people holding the ravine, and the others attacking. We were the attacking force. We said, okay, we'll do a column charge. One of the other sides gone, well, I've got javelins. I'm really effective with these, and I'm going to take everyone out. It's like, no worries. So Ariston is standing 2 or 3 feet forward of their line, and he's throwing javelins as we come forwards. I've got I'm front right, there's the front left. We'd been up until very early that morning, looking after someone whose 21st it was the night before, making sure that they were all safe. And so bit too many cups, not enough sleep, cranky as all things. And I've gone, right, we go forwards, and he starts throwing these things that are just pinging off here. It's like, so I've oriented my column, instead of going, okay, we'll hit the center of the wall, it's like, we're hitting him. And I've just nailed him. And at the point of no return, his shield wall have gone, do we keep him? Do we let him? Do we keep him? And they've just let enough pressure off their shield wall to let him come back. My momentum has pushed him in 3 ranks into the shield wall. I've managed to steamroll over him, and then I go, hey, I'm out the other side. There's a whole heap of archers. Archer slain, archer slain, archer slain. Shit, Stig, archer, fight. I die terribly. Res battle for our side. I get up, I bolt out the side, I bolt down the back, I come back, I come screaming down into the thing. I start to go about to hit someone, and then there's a hole. So, okay, hole. Stop and stop. Anyone from the defending team alive? No. Who am I about to hit? I don't. God, it's like, no, they're all dead. It's like, but I want to hit somebody. So.
It's always about killing people, Magnus. Always.
Or dying.
On that note, Magnus, I would like to thank you for your support through some of the most difficult times of the SCA that I have ever had, and some of the most joyous times of the SCA I have had. You are one of those people that at an event I always look for, because I know that even if I'm in a cranky pants mood, that you will give me a hug and either distract me with a job or make sure that I know that somebody is happy to see me at an event. So you are one of the most wonderful people that I have ever met in the SCA, and I am thankful for our friendship. Beatrice, your turn.
I love you, monkey. You know that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if anyone ever hears me talk about my monkey, this is the guy. It's that guy right there. But remember, helpful does not actually mean helpful.
No, it achieves the outcome,
Helping.
but not necessarily in the way that the person wants it to occur. The outcome always ends up happening, just maybe a little differently.
So, as we said earlier on in the interview, we are organizing the next lot of interviews, chats with the coronarias.
No,
Crowd.
prince and princesses of the principalities, which I'm really excited to meet them.
Also, the Baron and Baronesses of Lochac need to keep an eye on their email addresses while we ping you. There's a couple of roses that we will also be interviewing, because we want to introduce the new hosts to our platform. And we have a couple of interesting us and one person interviews with people in the kingdom that inspire us. And we're going to ask them to throw people under the bus. So thank you very much for participating, Magnus. This was a very strange suggestion, but thank you very much for asking myself and Beatrice to do this. So,
absolutely. Thank you so much, my monkey.
It was a pleasure that you both accepted, and that I was able to share the joy you bring to us with the rest of the known world.
Oh, you're way too sweet. And thank you so much to everybody who has watched tonight and continues to watch and support us. Even though we are labeled as Crown Between Two Roses, we only have one set of crowns left who are amazing, and we look forward to meeting them. But we're definitely keeping on that royalty line with the prince and princesses of the principalities and the barons and baronesses who have definitely had some rough times over the last year. And we're going on with meeting some people and peers across the known world who are quite important to us and to Lochac. So we look forward to the next chapter and see what comes about from it. Please join us and support us and like our page and come along and have some fun and some laughs with us. Until next time, thank you so much. Keep an eye out for when our next lot of interviews are, and we will see you then. Bye.